Hi everyone, welcome along to this introduction to wildlife gardening for all the family. My name's Alice and today we're going to have a look at some of the simple things you can do in your garden to help wildlife, in particular some of the insects that live in our gardens. Have you ever stopped to look at the bugs and insects in your garden? You might be amazed at how many different types live there. On this slide, we've got some of them that you might find. These are our pollinating insects. So these are things like our bumblebees. We've got butterflies, flies, hoverflies, beetles and wasps. And many of our insects are actually declining, and gardens can be really important safe havens for them. By gardening for insects and bugs, we can make great habitat for these pollinating insects and create a colourful summer buzz in your garden at the same time. So what can we do in our gardens to help out these insects and other wildlife too? So one of the easiest things we can do to help some of the insects in our garden is plant flowers. But did you know that a lot of plants that we have in our gardens look pretty, but aren't much good for bees and butterflies and other insects? And this is because they're not very good at producing pollen, which bees feed to their young, or producing the sugar-rich nectar which the adult insects need to survive. So when we're thinking about planting some flowers, we need to make sure that these are flowers that are beneficial to insects. And it's also good to think about having some flowering plants available to the insects all year round. So we want to think about plants that provide lots of pollen and nectar for our insects. And these can be all sorts of things. So in the spring, things like spring bulbs are really good. So crocuses or fruit trees can be really good. Then sort of in the summer, things like lavender, sunflowers, honeysuckle, sweet peas, aqualegias and cornflowers and daisies are all really good. So all of these things in this slide are good for our pollinating insects. You might have somewhere in your garden that you could make a little mini meadow, and all this needs is some bare earth, and you simply sprinkle a packet of wildflower seeds either in the autumn or the early spring over this bare earth, and then just water it lightly and see what comes up. If you do buy some wildflower seeds, do make sure that they're native to the UK. But some of the things that are really good are things like knapweed, buttercups, oxeye daisy, field scabious, wild marjoram and yarrow. So look for those sorts of things on your wildflower seed packets. Another way to make a bit of a mini meadow in your garden is to make a seed bomb, and this is a really easy thing to do and great fun as well. All you need is, again, some native wildflower seeds, but you also need a little bit of peat-free compost, and clay or flour, either will do, and some water to mix everything up in, and then also a tray or a bowl and a small cup and a teaspoon to measure everything out in. So to make your seed bomb, all you need to do is measure out 1 cup of clay or flour and 3 cups of your compost and put them in your tray or bowl. Add a teaspoon of wildflower seeds to that and then mix all of these dry ingredients together using your hands. And then measure out a cup of water and then gradually add that to the dry mixture. You might not need it all, so just add it a little bit at a time. And then when it starts to stick together, roll it up into small balls. So it can be anything from the size of a large marble, but no bigger than a sort of golf ball. And then all you need to do is leave them to dry. And then once they're dry comes the fun part. They're ready for planting. And you can throw your seed bombs onto your planting area or just place them there. And again, this just needs to be an area of soil, bare earth, and it can be in your garden or in a pot. And then all you need to do is wait for a bit of rain or water them and see what comes up. As well as providing some flowers for our insects and bugs in your garden, you could also let the grass grow a little bit longer, and this will provide shelter for insects if it's really hot and sunny, for example, but also provide somewhere where many of our insects can breed. But you might also find that if you let some of the grass grow a little bit long, that you get some flowers such as clover or buttercups in the lawn, and this will provide food, so our nectar for our insects too. There might be somewhere in your garden where you could leave a wild area, a wild corner. So these sorts of rough, untidy corners can be really important places for our insects to shelter, to nest, and also to overwinter. And this could be things like letting some ivy grow or bramble, so you've got a little sort of messy corner there. It could be having a compost heap, or maybe just not pulling up all of your weeds, as these can provide valuable pollen and nectar resources. Lots of our invertebrates love dead wood, either to shelter in or even to breed in. So if you're able to, why not leave a little pile of logs or sticks in the garden and see what uses them? Or if you're got a sort of a tree stump or something like that, that can be really important to leave in the garden and just let that rot down naturally. And this can be a great place to look for all sorts of mini beasts. So if you see if you can spot beetles or earthworms, things like that. Building a bee hotel is a great way to help out our solitary bees. Unlike honeybees and bumblebees, solitary bees live and build their nest alone, usually in tunnels, so things like hollow stems or old beetle holes. And if you create a ready-made place for them to lay their eggs, it's highly likely they will come and take up residence there. And these bees lay their eggs in the holes and then seal them up with a clump of chewed mud or a leaf. So why not lend bees a helping hand and build them a place to stay to encourage them to visit your garden? You can buy a ready-made bee hotel and put it up in your garden, and there are many different designs out there for you to choose from. But always place them about waist height, and that's waist height for an adult really, above the ground and in a sunny sheltered position, preferably south facing and near to some bee friendly flowers and shrubs. But you can also make your own bee hotel. You can do this in a number of ways. One of them is you can drill holes into a piece of wood and then place these in a box as shown on this slide. But remember to always get an adult to help with drilling any bits of wood. And the holes should be between 2 and 6 millimeters wide and about 15 centimeters deep. And it's best if your box has a bit of an overhang, so the rain doesn't get into all of those into those holes. So you can also make a bee hotel using bamboo canes. And again, ask an adult to help you cut some bamboo canes into 10 to 20 centimetre long pieces. And you can then place these in a box next to your drilled bits of wood, or you can just tie the canes together into a bundle, so with string or twine, and create a little bee hotel that way, and then hang it up in a sunny, sheltered part of your garden. Then all you need to do is sit back and watch and enjoy your bee hotel. Hopefully in the spring, a female solitary bee will use the holes to nest, but it could be that it takes them a year to find it. But in the meantime, spiders and other bugs will also use the hotel too. But you'll know if bees are using your hotel for nesting, as you will see them flying in and out of the holes, carrying pollen. So this might be on their bellies or on their legs. And you should also be able to see if any of the holes have actually been used, because the holes will get blocked with plugs of mud or leaves. So why not have a little go at this and see what visits your bee hotel? Having water in your garden is a great way to attract wildlife, and ponds are brilliant for this. So some insects, such as some of our hoverflies, will lay their eggs at the edges of water, but also lots of insects and other wildlife like to come to a pond for a drink. So having some water for thirsty insects and animals is really important. You might even get something like a beautiful dragonfly coming to your pond as well. And you can build a pond at any time of year, but if you start in the autumn or late winter, it will establish much more quickly. Ponds don't have to be big at all. Any water in the garden will be of benefit. And if you don't have much space, you can create a mini pond, and these can be made from something as simple as a washing up bowl, but keeping that full of water, having a few stones and a few plants in there will be absolutely wonderful for our wildlife. And don't worry if you haven't got room for a pond in your garden, you could always try making a hoverfly lagoon instead. So hoverflies are amazing insects. They're really important pollinators and also really good at controlling pests in your garden. So they're a great one to attract into your garden. So some of our hoverflies, like this fantastic drone hoverfly shown here, need a rot hole or some vegetation at the side of the pond to breed in. And these sorts of watery habitats are often missing from our gardens, but we can make a home for these hoverflies really simply, and these are known as hoverfly lagoons. All you need is a container of some sort. Make sure it doesn't have any holes in the bottom so it keeps water in it. So maybe something like a small bucket or a plastic milk bottle with the top cut off. You fill it with some leaves or some grass cuttings, pop a couple of sticks in it, and then put the whole thing in a tray, or here it's in a plastic sack filled with some leaves. Fill it up with some rainwater, and then you just pop it in a shady corner and wait for the hoverflies to find it. What should happen is that hoverflies will lay their eggs in the watery bit, and you can then search through your lagoon periodically to see if you have any larvae. For more information on hoverfly lagoons, or if you want to log what you find in there, check out the Hoverfly Lagoons website. They've got loads of brilliant information on there. So we've had a little look at some of the things you can do in your garden to help insects and all sorts of other wildlife too. So why not give some of them a go? Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your wildlife gardening, and I hope you find lots of insects. Bye.